We do it my way. Then, you shall have your revenge.
The movie takes place in the near future after the Earth's oil-based economy collapsed into chaos. Gangs of scavengers pillaging for black fuel took over the roads while the main force patrol were the only existing police force trying to save the world. The officer known as the Road Warrior lost his family to the gangs and was left to wander the wasteland in search of a new life. Sometime later, Max is driving down a highway in the last of the V8 Interceptors with his faithful blue heeler dog. He's being hunted by a gang who shoot arrows since bullets are scarce and wing their feathered leader with crossfire. Max evades his pursuers and swerves their previous victims' wreckages, causing them to total their vehicles. He and Dog jump out to collect the fallen's valuable fuel when the leader Wes returns with his little boy toy and pulls the arrow from his arm. Instead of a confrontation, the psycho just screams, then rides away as Max is left to collect his black gold. He finds other things of use to him like a small music box before hitting the road again to continue the cycle. The next side mission begins at an abandoned gyrocopter that Max attempts to check for fuel. It's guarded by a snake and its equally as slippery owner who pops up from the sand with a crossbow. The captain attempts to rob the road warrior, who warns him that the Pursuit Special's fuel tanks are booby-trapped. He decides not to kill the man and lets Dog disarm him, allowing Max to turn the tables on the Wastelander. He begs for his life and offers to show Max thousands of gallons of fuel, just waiting for the right person to take it. So the man's taken prisoner with Dog ready to pull the trigger should he jerk his head too hard when spotting a wild rabbit. They arrive at a hill overlooking a refinery to find it under attack by a gang using all sorts of makeshift vehicles. Wes turns out to just be a lieutenant for the gang's ruthless masked leader Lord Humungus. Max, Dog and the captain set up camp and watch as the gang fail at every attempt to break inside and fall back to try again tomorrow. The next morning, several cars leave the refinery in an attempt to find a truck to tow an oil tanker, but are chased down by the gang. One car comes near Max's camp and gets run off the road by Wes and his bikers, who torture its driver and passenger. The man's shot and left for dead, while one biker remains behind to continue assaulting the woman. He kills her before Max can arrive to bludgeon the man to death and cut the badly wounded Nathan free. He thanks Max for saving his life and offers him as much gas as he wants when they return to the refinery. A feral kid inspects the interceptor as it pulls up to the gates, and a stranger hops out with Nathan slung over his shoulder. Their school bus gates reverse open so that the refinery people can retrieve their wounded and take Max prisoner. Their suspicious leader Pappagallo questions the outsider about how he's come to survive in the wasteland all by himself. Max insists he just wants the fuel that Nathan promised him, but as the wounded man dies, so does the deal made with Max. They steal the stranger's supercharged Falcon, which the paraplegic mechanic's wise enough to disarm the booby trap. Just then the gang returns with their vehicles covered in the bodies of the dead survivors, all but two who still breathe. Zetta and the other survivors man the walls while the Toadie introduces the warrior of the wasteland, Humungus. He says that the survivors have 24 hours to walk away unharmed and leave the fuel to him and his gang. Meanwhile, the feral kid sneaks outside through one of his tunnels and throws a razor-sharp boomerang at Wes, but he dodges it and on the second toss his boy toy gets it in the head. He wildly hurls it at the kid, but it returns like boomerangs do and slices Toadie's fingers off. Wes demands they storm the compound immediately, but Humungus chokes him unconscious in the kindest way possible before the gang departs. The people of the compound are divided, with Rebecca wanting to accept Humungus's offer while Curmudgeon thinks it's a trap to lure them outside. After retrieving his blood-soaked boomerang and silently bragging to the prisoner, Max builds up a rapport with the kid by gifting him the music player that receives a cheerful grunt. The quiet man and the warrior woman know that the fuel's their life source to greener pastures and they just need to find a way to transport it. That's when Max mentions the empty truck that he saw 2 days ago by the crash site. He offers to retrieve it in exchange for his car and all of the fuel that his tanks can carry, but needs a few gallons first to get it started. The refinery people agree, and under the cover of darkness Max sneaks past Humungus's camp, nearly alerting one of Wes's bikers. But the allied kids followed and begins imitating the howls of a wolf to throw off the man's suspicion. The next morning Max reaches the hill where he left Cap handcuffed to a log, but he's escaped. He finds him nearby, so Dog runs him down before Cap's made to carry the fuel back to his gyro. Max finds ammo on a body, revealing that the shotgun was unloaded this whole time, and makes the pilot fly him to the crash site. Once he gets the truck started, Max gives Cap the keys to his shackles and leaves him on the side of the road, but he chooses to follow from the sky as Max drives straight through the gang's camps, catching them by surprise. The shells turn out to be a dud, unlike the ones in Humungus's coveted 44 that puts a bullet through the engine of the truck. It still manages to make it back to the compound with Wes on board and a few of the other gang members while the gates are open. The captain assists by dropping his snake on an archer who kills his driver and causes them to crash. Humungus and the rest of the gang try to attack from the outside, wounding Pappagallo in the process. As the last of the intruders alive, Wes manages to kill the quiet man before fleeing when things get too hairy. The rest of the gang's forced to flee when Max jumps on the mounted flamethrower to prevent them from breaching the gate. When they retreat, the survivors greet Max as an ally and return his belongings along with bullets for his gun. He just wants to get his fuel and go as the captain lands in the compound and receives the same level of praise. He immediately makes an enemy of the feral boy while becoming infatuated with one of the refinery girls. That night, Humungus announces what an enemy they've made of him and tortures captives in the distance for them all to listen. While Max is refueling, Pappagallo and Curmudgeon try to persuade him to stay and drive the truck to a place 2,000 miles away that they call paradise. Max refuses in the politest way possible, so Pappagallo calls him a coward for contributing to the fall of society like the scavengers outside the walls. When he leaves, the feral kid makes his play to join Max in his travels, but he turns the kid away for his own good. The leader decides to honor their deal and allows Max to leave the compound at daybreak despite wanting to steal the interceptor. Cap conspires with his girl to escape, but she isn't able to abandon her people, so he decides to stay and warns Max not to challenge the gang, but the road warrior thinks his vehicle the faster. The moment Max drives away, Wes is after him in the gang's fastest truck, which he takes against his master's orders.
Disobey me.
With the use of nitrous oxide, the biker quickly catches the interceptor and smashes the windscreen, causing it to violently run off the road into a ditch. A badly wounded Max crawls out and hides behind a rock, but is discovered by the Toadie and another goon. Dog protects Max, getting killed in the process, but buys enough time for the booby-trapped interceptor to explode. Having lost the V8 and the fuel it contained, the failure Wes returns empty-handed to be turned into Humungus's chained-up pet. The captain sees the smoke from the compound and uses his chopper to retrieve a barely conscious Max. He's taken to the medical bay where the feral kid watches over him until he recovers and uses the boy for a crutch. Pappagallo's going over the plan to drive the tanker himself to allow the rest of the people to escape in the school bus in another direction and meet up with him later. It's only now does Max decide to take them up on their offer to drive the truck, and they prepare to escape in their various vehicles. The tanker's guarded by the warrior woman Zetta the mechanic and the feral kid who was meant to go on the school bus but snuck on board. Now covered in defenses, the truck gets the attention of Humungus's forces to lure them away from the busload of survivors. The captain drops Molotovs from the sky while the mechanic throws them from the tanker and the rest fire arrows. The fuel remaining at the compound's been rigged with explosives, and the moment it's encroached upon, it blows up in spectacular fashion. Zed is killed when a grappling hook rips him off the back of the truck while Humungus lets Wes off his chain. The mechanic drops a Molotov on himself, so the warrior woman tries to help but is caught out in the open and shot in the stomach by Wes. The mechanic tries to retrieve her body before the gang can, but is killed alongside her when they get pulled under the wheels of the truck. As the last survivors begin to get swarmed in the cabin, the feral kid helps fight back as Wes leaps on the roof and Max hits the brakes, sending him flying. The two prisoners strapped to the front of Humungus's vehicle are finally crushed as Pappagallo pulls up alongside the tanker to assist, but is speared in the back by the warlord's trident and runs off the road. The cap drops a firebomb on Humungus, taking him out of the chase, but is shot out of the sky and crashes. With only Max and the feral kid left to fight, Max decides to make a U-turn and begins heading back the way he came. The kid goes out on the bonnet to retrieve Max's shotgun shells when Wes grabs him, still clinging onto the grill. Humungus puts out the fire and hits the NOS to catch back up to the truck, but it's coming straight at him and plows through him head-on, killing Wes in the process. The tanker flips when it goes off the road, but when the surviving gang members approach it, they realize it's just filled with dirt. The decoy was a success, as the disappointed gang fall back and Max climbs out of the truck carrying the unconscious kid. The captain drives up in his grounded Gyro and the two exchange smiles after successfully leading the gang away from the school bus filled with barrels of fuel. The captain becomes the current group's leader while the feral kid grows up to be commander of the northern tribes. They never saw the road warrior Max again, who returned to the streets in search of another V8. And the movie ends.
We go in. We can't kill it now.
It's still much of a war.
No, just wait.